What's up guys, Jorge Contreras here, and in this video we're going to be talking about college. Is college necessary? Is college worth it? Maybe some of you are thinking about going into college straight out of high school, or maybe you're someone who's been to college before and you're thinking about going back so you can have a more sustainable, longer career where you're making more money and all that good stuff. Or maybe you're an entrepreneur like me and you're asking yourself, if I want to be an entrepreneur, do I actually need to go to college? Do I need a degree? Well, by the end of this video, we're going to solve this once and for all. So let's get started. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is, when is college an absolute must? When is it necessary? Well, if you wanted to become a lawyer, if you wanted to become a doctor or a dentist, then it is absolutely necessary. At least I don't know of a way where you can become a doctor, lawyer, or dentist in the US and be able to do it without a proper degree. So if you want to become any one of those three, then I believe it must be necessary. And if that's your passion and that is your vision and that's what you decide to do in your lifetime, I think that's amazing. You have my support. Go for it. Now, in all of my years as an entrepreneur, I've learned a lot about the history of not just the educational system, but of entrepreneurship and the agenda behind the educational system, which is to create taxpayers, to create employees. So if you do want to become one of those things, my suggestion, if you truly wanted to create freedom, is you get your degree, you become a dentist, lawyer, doctor, but then go and learn how to become an entrepreneur and start your own practice, your own hospital, your own law firm, so that you can build a business that is sustainable, scalable, and that will ultimately give you freedom. So here is what I learned, is that we only have two options in life. You either build your dream, or someone else is going to hire you to build theirs. Now, it is a fact that in school, they are not going to teach you marketing, sales, how to hire, how to delegate, how to invest, how to structure your business from a tax perspective. You are not going to learn how to build a real business. You are going to learn how to become an employee. So if you do follow those, my suggestion is truly find a way after school to learn from someone who already has a multiple 6 or 7 figure business and learn from them. This way you don't get trapped in the paycheck to paycheck rat race where you are just working for the next paycheck over and over and over again, and you're gonna have to be working there into your late 60s, maybe even until your 70s. The next thing I want to talk about is to smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm, but honestly, it really helps me out when you guys smash the like button, because it lets YouTube know that this is a great video and that they should recommend it to others. So thanks in advance. The next thing I want to talk about is that there are 4 people that make up the world of business. And this directly impacts you whether you go to school or don't go to school, whether you're an employee or whether you are an entrepreneur. And the 4 people that make up the world of business are employees, self-employed people, business owners, and investors. Now, 95% of the population is in the E quadrant, which is for employees. And why is it? Well, employees pay the most amount of taxes, right? They only get about 60% of their paycheck, because 40% goes to the state, to federal, Social Security, Medicare. They can't write off things, even if they are specifically only things that they use for their job. So if they have to buy clothing, shoes, or they use their cell phone for their job, or they drive a car that they mostly use only for their job, they can't write any of those things off, because only business owners can. Also, when you are in the E quadrant, you are working for money. Now, when you are in the S quadrant, you sort of have your own business, but it's not really a business, because you still run your business like a job. You're still trading your hours for dollars. You still have a low ceiling. You have a limiting belief of, if I want it done right, I have to do it myself. And so your growth is linear. You can't go on vacation for more than a week, because guess what? Your business will stop generating income. Now, in a second, I'm going to tie this all back in. So the next part of the quadrant is the B quadrant, where you have a big business. This is where you have a team, you have systems, you have asset protection. You actually work on the business, not in the business. So you look at Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Warren Buffett. They all have sustainable, scalable, real businesses that, because they have systems and a team in place, they can go on vacation for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and guess what? Their business will continue to run without them. And then the last quadrant is the I quadrant. This is where you go from in the E quadrant working for money to in the I quadrant having money work for you. What's cool about being in this quadrant is that money does not go on lunch, it doesn't go on break, it doesn't go on vacation. It works 24/7 and they can legally pay little to no taxes when structured properly. You know, it's interesting. One of the things that I've learned is that the majority of millionaires and billionaires either never went to college or they never finished college. You look at Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, the richest man in the world. He has no business degree. You look at Mark Zuckerberg, one of the youngest billionaires of all time and still today. He never finished college. And so to kind of bring it all back to the initial topic of this video, if you want to become an entrepreneur, a business owner, you absolutely do not need to go to school. I'll use my own experience as well. I did 7th grade twice. I graduated high school with 4 F's and 1 D. And my school teachers always said that I would never amount to anything and that I wouldn't be successful because I wasn't good at memorizing tests and all this information that I would never use in my life. According to them, I was not going to be successful. And then yes, I did go to college for a few semesters and then I dropped out and I started my very own business at the age of 20. And the way I was able to become a successful business owner is I asked myself, what entrepreneur out there in the same industry has already created a business 10 times the size of my goals? And how can I learn from them so that I don't have to reinvent the wheel, waste a lot of time and money? And that's what I did. Over the last 12 years, I've learned from other entrepreneurs that have real life results. And so I've been to all the Tony Robbins trainings. I was a student at the Rich Dad Coaching Company, and I've learned from multi-millionaires, which is what allowed me to get out of the rat race in my late 20s and for my net worth to exceed $1 million by the time I was 30. Now, I believe there's no way that would have happened if I would have followed the normal, go to school, get a degree, get a high-paying job, and call it a day. I believe that I would have still been in school debt, which for me, that's a very interesting situation. How do they get you to go into this type of debt that you could never get rid of, even if you file for bankruptcy? And people say that hiring a coach, a mentor, or buying an online course is a scam, but going into debt that you could never get rid of, even if you file for bankruptcy, that's not a scam to you? So I find this a very interesting topic. So like I said, if you want to become a dentist, doctor, lawyer, then absolutely go to school, get your degree, but then go out there and find someone who already has the business that you desire to create and build your own business so that you can build your own empire rather than going to work for someone else and build their empire. And if you're trying to build a business in anything that doesn't require a degree, I recommend that you go on YouTube and watch videos like this. Read audiobooks or order books on Amazon from people that have already created the results and outcome that you want in your life. One of the books that I recommend is Rich Dad Poor Dad. This is going to help you change a mindset from thinking like an employee and thinking like an entrepreneur and investor. Other great entrepreneurs out there who I recommend reading their books are Tony Robbins, Gary Vee, and Gary Keller. The reason I love reading books from these successful millionaires and billionaires is they're going to take their decades of life and business experience and then compress it into a book that you can read in a few hours. So even though it took them 10, 20, 30 years to master certain skills, strategies, and mindset, you can acquire that same wisdom or most of it in just a few hours. You know, going back to the cash flow quadrant, it's very interesting because on the E quadrant, the more money you make, the more taxes you pay because you go into a higher tax bracket. What's interesting though is that as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, the more money you make, the more you can write off and deduct as long as you can properly justify it as a business expense. Now, I've come to this conclusion that I'm about to share from my own research. And I am not saying for you to believe me. What I do encourage and suggest for you is to go out there and do your own research. But in my research, here's what I learned, is that the whole education system was created based on the General Board of Education. And one of the biggest influences was John D. Rockefeller, who is a central banker. So just imagine, what does a central banker have to do with creating and influencing the education system? I think that's wrong and fraudulent right off the bat. There is something wrong with that picture. And so what I learned is that the purpose of the education system was to create employees, also known as high taxpayers, which makes sense. This is why 95% of the population is in this quadrant. And through all of the news and propaganda and TV programming, they have told us that to be successful, you have to go to school, get a degree, get a job, and go and work for someone else, and then retire in your late 60s or 70s. Personally, I don't buy the idea that I'm gonna graduate college in my early 20s and then work for 40-something years for someone else's business and then not be able to pass that on to my children. You know, this is what we call the 40-40-40 trap, where you work for 40 hours a week for 40 years of your life to then retire on 40% of the income, which wasn't enough to live off of in the first place. I'll never forget, in 2012, my wife and I went on vacation to Mexico, and we were on this little van that they picked us up from at the airport and were taking us to our resort. And there was this couple in their early 70s. The older man had multiple back surgeries. He was using a cane. His wife was helping him walk. He could barely walk. And so we asked him, what brings you to Cancun? And they're like, we've worked our whole lives for 40-something years, and now we finally get to enjoy our life. I thought it was really sad that they had to wait until their late 60s, 70s for retirement. And the man could barely walk, and he was in so much pain. And me and my wife looked at each other and just agreed that instead we would build a business that would give us time, financial, and location freedom so that we could have a life that felt like retirement the entire time, because we were living life on our terms and we had absolute control of our time and our income. And so that is what we have done. We were able to both get out of the rat race and build businesses that we could run from anywhere in the world, which has given us complete freedom. I'm shooting this video right now from one of our offices in our home. We get to travel as often as we want, when we want, with who we want. And this is what we call living life by design and not by default, not by the system that the General Board of Education has created. Because even when you're working in a job, the most I've ever seen somebody get as vacation time is like 3 or 4 weeks. And the other 48, 49 weeks, you can't go on vacation. So to wrap this video up, if you want to follow a career that absolutely requires you to have a degree, by all means, do your thing, but then go and learn how to build a business and build your own empire so one day you could pass it on to your family as part of your legacy. Because no matter how much you love your job and how hard you work at your job, you can't pass it on because it was never yours. So that's just my 2 cents. I hope that this video was of value to you. Make sure you guys smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification, and last but not least, make sure you guys follow me on Instagram, where I post videos every single day. And if you guys have any questions or any feedback from everything that I shared today, make sure you guys add it in the comments below. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.